recording. Hello and welcome everybody to today's training. This one's very special. It's about artificial intelligence, hype or danger, a conscious leader's guide to AI. So let me just go into, for those of you who are new or watching this for the first time, just a little bit about me. My name is Tim Paul Duffy. I'm the founder of Electus Society. What is our mission? To create conscious leaders and develop real world skills. A little bit about me: for over the last 20 years, I've been a leadership trainer and life coach, and I've even started adding and sharing it to my bio. I'm also a Reiki master and teacher, which I think is very, very important in terms of my bio and my background. I was really part of the team that helped grow the National Society of Leadership and Success, one of the largest leadership societies in the country with over 1 million members. I worked there for over 12 years. I managed and coached over 600 people, so I really learned a lot about leadership and about success, performance. And then I actually did volunteer work with Landmark Worldwide, which has centers all around the world that teaches people about, how to have transformations in their life, both their personal and professional life. And I did a lot of their programs, even their 4-month leadership program. I ended up coaching the program and then became the head coaches, coaching the coaches and the participants in the program. So I did that for several years. So that's just a little bit of me, about me and my background. So what are we going to be learning in today's training? We're going to cover a lot of good stuff. The first part is we're going to start off with the discussion question. How are you currently using AI? Stuff like ChatGPT or Grok or Anthropic or Perplexity, a lot of these learning language models or anything that's related to AI. I'm really curious. I'm going to share with you what I've been using it for. The next thing is we're going to be talking about the definitions as related to AI. There's a lot of terms that are thrown out there with respect to AI, and I'm going to define each of them. I only gave a couple. I'm going to give you some more. Then part two is we're going to actually show you and do a deep dive in how does ChatGPT and these learning language models actually work, right? And so therefore, it's going to really help us understand, because it's not until you really know how they work so that you could actually see what their limitations are. And then I'm going to discuss the different types of intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence. Well, there's more than one type of intelligence. And guess what? I'm going to conclude that their AI may never be fully intelligent. So that's something for you to look out for. And then part three is we're going to be talking about the AI hype. If you see it everywhere, it's either from extreme, like, oh my goodness, AI is going to take over the world. It's going to bring so much prosperity. It's going to be grow our GDP by so much productivity. The other people are extreme, like, oh my goodness, it's going to lead to a disaster if machines and AI take over. Well, let me share with you some of my examples of where I think there's a lot of AI hype, because again, I'm here as part of Electus Society to tell you real world stuff, right? And then there are dangers to AI, but I'm going to share with you 3 actual dangers of stuff like ChatGPT. And then bonus, I'm going to give you top 10 plus different AI tools that a lot of people are using. And then I just saw your comment, so this is all foreign to me, so I decided to learn about it. Yes, absolutely. It's foreign to me as well. And it almost seems like the whole world just expects you to know about AI and how to use it. But I think by you attending this training soon, and a lot of other people, guess what you're going to do? You're going to really understand the inner workings of a car, right? So then therefore you're not going to have to be afraid. We're going to really look under the hood and see what's this all about and how you can actually use it and how to be careful about it. All right. So like I just wanted to share with you what inspired this training. Again, every month we do a leadership library series with Electus Society to talk about success or leadership. And so I read this book called Money GPT, the AI and the Threat to the Global Economy, by Jim Rickards. If any of you have seen my previous trainings, I did a lot of different trainings about economics because I think it's important for leaders to understand money and how it works and how economy works, etc. And Jim Rickards is the probably the economics professor that I always wish I had, that I never did, because the reason why he's so good is he's able to take complex ideas and break them down in simple ways to understand, because I'm just a simple guy. And again, the thing that I always have to be careful of is Electus Society is independent. I'm independent. I'm neutral. I'm not pro red team, blue team. I think I want to be objective. Jim Rickards tends to be on the little bit more of the conservative side, So I'm not going to judge him for that. But what ends up happening is the thing that I like about him is, as I've mentioned before, I appreciate people who are able to see both sides of the issues and be able to actually summarize each side of the issues. And because he's a lawyer, and that's what lawyers have to do. So that's why I think he's really, really good. And it's why I pay attention. I always tell all the members, if I wasn't doing leadership training and development, I would have been a doctor. That would be my second career. And the third thing that I love to learn about is the economy. And so this book really attracted my attention. So a lot of the information that's covered in this training I pulled out from this book as well as all additional sources. So we'll be talking about it. So as you know, I always love to start every training with a grounding 2-minute meditation. This is not only for me, but this is for all of us so that when we're learning all this information, we're going to understand it more, absorb it more, see how we can apply it to our lives, etc. And again, we're always living so busy lives that sometimes we don't never even have a moment to actually meditate. So again, we're just going to take 2 minutes. That's barely anything just to do this quiet, simple meditation and grounding, and then we'll go into the rest of the presentation. So I'm going to turn off my screen, play this 2 minutes. Let's go.
Welcome to this mindful moment of stillness. Let's take these next 2 minutes to find peace and presence within ourselves. First, I want you to find a comfortable seat. Feel free to sit on a chair, on the floor, or anywhere you feel grounded and at ease. Gently close your eyes or lower your gaze, whatever feels right for you. Now, take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. Feel the air moving through your nostrils, filling your lungs, and then leaving your body. Allow your breathing to find its natural rhythm without trying to change or control it. As we enter into this moment of stillness, give yourself permission to be here, fully, in the now. This is your time, a precious pause from the hustle of your day. I invite you to bring your attention to your thoughts. As thoughts come into your mind, simply observe them. Imagine they are like clouds passing in the sky, coming and going, without you needing to hold on to them. If you find your mind wandering, it's okay. It's natural. Gently guide your focus back to your breath, feeling the rise and fall of your chest, or the air entering and exiting your nostrils. Remember, there is no right or wrong way to do this. It's all about observing, not judging. You're simply noticing what's happening within you, moment by moment. As we come to the end of this meditation, take one more deep breath in and out. Bring a gentle smile to your face, acknowledging the peace you've brought to yourself in just these 2 minutes. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes or lift your gaze. Take this sense of calm and mindfulness with you as you continue with your day. Thank you for joining me in this mindful moment of stillness. May you carry this calmness and presence with you.
Namaste. All right. All right, let's start off with part one, a discussion, and then jumping into definition. So the first question is, how are you currently using AI in your personal and professional life? So I want you to start thinking about any time that you've really used AI And it could have been something that was very helpful for you, something where it didn't work out. And while you're thinking, feel free to post it in the chat or raise your digital hand because I'd love to call upon you and get your feedback. While you're thinking about that, I'll just share with you how I have used it. So, as you know, I have my Electus Society. I also have my own company, Duffy Leadership Incorporated, where I'm just a solo entrepreneur doing speeches and coaches. And as I started to develop a bank account, I needed to develop a bank account for Electus Society. Just a simple, checking account. And because Electus Society is a 501(c)(3) non-for-profit, I go to the bank, they're like, okay, what do I need? What documents do I need? Oh, you actually have to have minutes with your board of directors, and you have to actually declare who's the person who's going to be have access to the finances. I'm like, well, aren't I doing everything? It's like, no, you have a format. So guess what? I decided to do. I'm like, okay, let me ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT, can you please create a template of a type of board meeting minutes for a 501(c)(3) non-for-profit where I appoint a fiduciary person responsible for banking as well as appointing the board members? And it's like, and I'm like, it printed it up and I'm like, oh my goodness, copy, paste, excellent. And then, but remember, I'm going to be talking about this later as part of the dangers of AI is that information actually accurate? So what did I do? I have a lawyer and I basically said, hey, I'm about to create an account. Here are the minutes. Can you do a review of it? Is it good to go? Because he had expertise. And he's like, yeah, it looks good. I've reviewed everything. You could always change it later as you continue to expand and add more board members as Electus Society continues to grow. Excellent. And so I submitted it then to the bank. Now, how much did AI really help me? Well, I mean, it created that. That was quite impressive. But if I didn't have AI, guess what I would have done? I would have gone to my lawyer and say, hey, lawyer, I need a template for a minutes. And he might have given me a sample and I would have done it. But guess what? That would have taken more time. And so, because my lawyer is expensive, because of his expertise, instead of charging me $250 an hour, I'm going to have to pay him 250. But instead, I only paid him half that. Maybe it was like $100 because he just had to review it very simply half an hour versus more because of the ChatGPT. So ChatGPT saved me $100 or something like that. So that's me and my personal example of how I've benefited. So who else would like to share how they have used ChatGPT? Maybe I could also call upon some people. Srijita, may I mind calling? Do you mind if I call upon you to see if you used ChatGPT or any other AI technologies?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so for me, I'm a PhD student.
Hmm.
So yeah, that helped me a lot. But yeah, suppose I use ChatGPT when I'm revising my draft, my proposal or my research paper. It's like I write it and then I ask ChatGPT that if to correct it if there is any mistakes or to revise the wordings sometimes. But
Yeah.
mostly it gives me really nice version. But I have faced, I mean, as it doesn't know the context. So
Yeah.
sometimes I had to like go through it once again and then I check and then I get something wrong. Then I again like give up. I mean, I think providing a correct prompt is a very important thing while using ChatGPT for anything. Also, I use those for if I'm stuck with some coding, then I just copy paste the error
Yep.
and ask them that okay, so what will be the solution, and a lot actually.
No, absolutely. So it's great. So here's what I'm hearing. You're using it as almost like a grammar language double check, right? It can help
Exactly.
clean it up. Also, you talked about coding. Absolutely.
Yeah,
ChatGPT and other platforms are able to create massive amounts of code instead of you having to do all this busy work.
exactly.
It does it for you, right? But then you give it all the guides and parameters, and you use
Yeah,
a term that, again, that I think is going to be very important. We don't focus it on today. We do cover it a little bit. It's called prompt engineering. So when I was in school many years ago, like over 20 years ago, one of the things that the biggest fear was Google, the internet. What's going to happen? Oh my goodness, people are going to get the internet and they're going to be worried about getting false information, right? And it was like, oh, okay, I could do all these searches, I can find all the answers. ChatGPT and these other these are just other advancement and tools, right? But it's all about the questions that you ask, how you research. So all of us, everybody on this call, if we're ever going to use this technology, we have to know the right questions to ask to develop the type of prompts. And again, I didn't have time to do it in this training, but I'm going to start. My goal is start collecting really good prompts because again, the better that you get at prompts, the more effective you're going to be. And I've even used ChatGPT where I asked it a question, and this is something I learned from my friend. It gives a response, and I'm like, "Are you sure? Can you go into more detail?" And, or you even almost flip the script. It says, "I want to learn about this topic, but can you tell me all the questions I should be asking you?" You use the way, and so you flip it on them, help you. So that was great. So thanks, Shaditi. I appreciate the feedback. So you said that you're all new to this. Have you ever used ChatGPT or anything like that?
No, I have not. The only thing I really use is on my documents. I use Grammarly and that kind of thing, but I don't know. I don't think that's has anything to do with AI.
No, no, that
I,
it kind of is. It kind of is. I'm just gonna. I had to mute your background just because there was some background noise. So yes, thank you. So that's why I'm so glad that you're in this training is because you're going to learn all these different tools, how to use it correctly, what to avoid. But yes, artificial intelligence is everywhere. You know, like even if you're in a document and you're actually writing it and it says, "Hey, this word might be misspelled," that's a form of artificial intelligence. So we use it all the time when I actually have a leased, it's I think it was 2023, so it's a relatively new car. And what ends up happening as I'm driving, it's like it uses artificial intelligence. If I'm swerving into the next lane, like I'm being distracted, my steering wheel will vibrate, brr, brr, and I'm like, what? And then I look on the little dashboard and it says, hey, you're getting close to the line. It's not going to take over my driving as maybe some Teslas or something like that, but it's everywhere. And as Jim Rickards in his book talks about artificial intelligence, it's like it's even in our refrigerators, you know, like when the refrigerator says, hey, time to change the water filter in here, that's artificial intelligence, you know. So at this point, I'll get one more comment. Hey, Yomerly, I just wanted to ask you, do you use ChatGPT or anything like that or AI?
Yeah, I actually do use AI a lot.
How are you using it?
So I'm in an entrepreneurship class, and whenever there are like terms or like concepts for an assignment that I don't fully understand, like
Mm-hmm.
I use Google Gemini
Yeah.
the most to like ask it what can you break down this like concept, like what it means. So
No, that's very good. So you're using it as an educational tool to basically say, I don't understand this. Can you please explain it further? Right. And you get to give it different questions. And again, guess what? I did the same thing with Google. Whenever I wanted to do something, I would Google. And again, Google Gemini is just basically another form of ChatGPT where it's a learning language model. It basically summarizes, right, based on your question. So awesome. All right. So people are using for education, for grammar, for all these different things. So there's a bunch of different uses for it. So let's go into the next actually section. Hold on one second. So now we're going to go into definitions, right? So there's a lot of terms associated with artificial intelligence, and I'm going to go through some of these definitions so that you know about them. AI, artificial intelligence, singularity, and Ray Kurzweil is a famous person who talks about singularity. AGI, artificial general intelligence, AI agents, or agentic AI. Like there's all these like fancy words, but there's some other couple of words or concepts I wanted to share with you. What's uncanny valley? Also a Turing test. And what about consciousness or you're conscious? For some of you who are members know that we talk about that. Okay. So the next slide is all about the first definition. What is artificial intelligence? I'll tell it is to you right now what it is in one sentence. It's the capability of computers to perform tasks typically associated with humans' intelligence. So when humans were doing math, guess what? Now we had a computer, a calculator. That's artificial intelligence. Then we advance it. Now we have a computer. An ATM does the functions of a teller. That's an artificial intelligence machine. And now we have robots and arms that actually do very, very specific tasks on circuit breakers or constructing cars. This is all forms of artificial intelligence. Okay. So the next term that I want to teach you about is something called the singularity. What is that? Well, it's people will talk about it a lot. It's this idea that there's a theoretical future at some point where guess what? Computers are going to become so intelligent, this AI, that it's going to surpass what humans can do. And then once AI is even surpasses humans, like we have no idea what's going to happen. It's going to have some kind of runaway effect. How is it going to be? We don't know. But some people think it's going to be positive. Other things it's going to cause major problems. Again, it's just something that we think about it, and we don't really have a great answer. Then there was this guy by the name of Ray Kurzweil. And I think it's important that you guys all know about him. He wrote a book called The Singularity is Near. He's written a lot of other books. He would identify himself as a futurist. I've seen him, I've heard him in different interviews. He's a very fascinating person, a very interesting backstory. He lost his father, and like through his own personal experience, he's been able to, always been fascinated on this idea that you could actually prolong health utilizing machines and technology. At one point, Ray Kurzweil was going bald, and suddenly he started searching all the different ways to actually augment the human to make it live longer. And he like took all these different supplements. And look at him now. This was a recording he did with the interview with Joe Rogan. Now he's like full head of hair. Like it's just amazing. Again, I don't know if it's a toupee, but that's what I know about him. So very interesting guy. So he actually redefined what singularity is, right? He said the singularity is the point in which machine intelligence and human intelligence would merge together. Okay. So as you can see, human intellect is here, and then machine intellect, when we started inventing machines, is here. And at some point, machines are going to surpass human, and we're going to then work together, and there's going to be a new type of human, a transhuman. Okay. Now, again, I didn't have time to go into the debate of the transhumanism. That is a concept that there is a concern that there's two different polar extremes. One group of people that says we need to merge with technology and become one with technology, and the other people says no, you're actually giving over your autonomy and your whole life to machines, and you're actually forgetting what the true purpose of to be human is. The divineness, the power of what it is to be a human. And so again, where are you going to be, a humanist or a transhumanist? And the answer is somewhere we're most likely be in the middle, like, where it's like, I'm going to still use my phone and different technology to get by and do things, but I'm not going to necessarily merge or have a port in my head or anything like that. So again, I think that's where most people are going to kind of come to that middle, where technology is going to be used to enhance human life, not necessarily replace it. Okay. So here's a big debate about singularity and the different types of intelligence. So it's a 4-minute clip, and this is Salim Ismail, and I'm really impressed with Salim. I don't necessarily have to agree with all of his points, but he is oftentimes on a podcast with Peter Diamandis, and the podcast is called Moonshots, and they're all talking about future. I mean, these are big tech guys who are working with companies, investing in different people. He wrote a book with Peter Diamandis on how companies and organizations can grow and scale up, and all about using technology as a way to help grow businesses. It's called Exponential, something like that, 2.0. I haven't read it yet. I've just listened to a lot of podcasts about it. So, but he gives interesting perspectives, and I think it's worthy of hearing him. So this was a podcast that he did, interview by Tom Bellew. And you know what's so funny? Whenever you listen to these podcasts that talk about AI, look at what the title says. The AI reset. Life as we know it is going to be gone in 5 years. Is it the utopia or dystopia? Salim Ismail. The big reset has begun. Again, these are all clickbaity type of, things to really grab people's attention, fear, sells. But once you actually listen to them and listen to the podcast, it's like, that's not really what it's all about. So check it out.
And that would be what we would call the singularity, right? So we are hitting that right now in AI. Does your audience know what the singularity is?
You should give it
I'll
to them,
define it
and
in
you
two
should also tell me what year you think we hit that.
Okay, I don't believe in it, by the way. So
I've heard you talk on this,
Yes.
so but give it to us all, the whole
So-
shebang.
So Werner Vinge coined this phrase, the technological singularity. And he basically said the minute machine intelligence overtakes human intelligence, then we take on a technological evolutionary path, not a biological evolutionary path. And the minute that happens, we are complete, the world is completely different. And Ray Kurzweil popularized that as the singularity and wrote this book called The Singularity is Near in 1999, positing that in 2045, we would get to that point where machine intelligence overtakes human intelligence. Okay, I disagree with this for two levels. Okay, first, and I've had lots of conversations about with Ray on this. The first is that we don't know what intelligence is. The IQ test measures two aspects of intelligence: the speed of thought processing and the ability to match concepts across frameworks. But we have many dimensions, about a dozen other facets of intelligence, like linguistic intelligence, spatial intelligence, emotional intelligence, this concept of spiritual awareness, or the concept of presence, the Eastern concept of being present. None of that is reflected in an IQ test. And that whole sum of the parts is what we call intelligence. So my first issue with it is, what the hell do you mean by intelligence? Right? And the second issue I have is, what do you mean by overtaking? Because the minute I can prescriptively describe a task, an AI or robot is going to do it much better than me anyway. And so let them do it. And therefore, it frees me to be much more creative and so on. And I think what we're doing is we're merging with technology, and this is where Ray and I definitely do agree, where you're merging with technology such that the human experience is augmented and amplified. The fact that I have a smartphone, I would argue, makes me more human than less human, because of my memories in there, freeing up lots of neurons to do other work. I can communicate with my son for free around the world, which is unbelievable. I can project empathy around the world, which is incredible. So I'm more human with my device than without it. And I think that's a powerful commentary for where intelligence goes. Most people worry about AI as, oh my God, it'll come on and take over the world and will destroy us. And if we're lucky, we're pets, and if we're unlucky, we're food. It's kind of like pretty much always goes that way. Skynet, Terminator, The Matrix. But what we actually see is we're augmenting the human experience with technology at an amazing level. And I think that's very, very inspiring. We're more human now. So let's look at education, for example. Over the last 200 years, we roboticized our employees. So that's your job function. Do that one job. You're an audit accountant. You do audits and you do it repetitively. And we're going to measure you by how quickly and how effectively and how fast and mistake-free are your audits, and that your bonus is based on that. So we turn people into robots, people on assembly lines stamping out widgets. Now, with the advent of AI and robotics and so on, people are becoming much more human again. The most valuable employees or colleagues you have in any company are the people that learn the fastest. And that's a magical thing to be. Now, as AI comes along, the big challenge is, and I would argue that in the concept of what you would call the singularity, in AI, we've hit the singularity. The pace of change in AI is now so fast, you can't absorb it. By the time you've made an investment, your investment is out of date. And so this is a huge structural challenge with this. I'll give you an analog in the education world. If you're doing a master's degree in neuroscience today, by the time you finish your master's degree, you're out of date, because computational neuroscience is overtaking the field so fast that it's making the old ways irrelevant very quickly. So the structural issue we have in education is we can't update our educational frameworks quickly enough to deal with all the new changes. And AI, I think, is the epitome of that right now. And this is where I made the comment. Elon tweeted this.
Interesting, right? Where, what I got from that clip is there are different types of intelligences out there, and that's something that we have to take over. In Jim Rickard's books, he actually, towards the conclusion of the book, says, yes, artificial intelligence is not going to take over because human intelligence is so much different than what machines can do. And we're going to talk about that later in the training. But I did find it also fascinating where he also says that the speed and advancement is happening so quickly, like where you take a master's degree in neuroscience and by the time you graduate, it's going to be outdated. Well, that just is more of an indictment on the higher education system, right? Because it's a system. It has it's set up, and whenever you have a company or organization that becomes very, very complex, anytime there's new change, it's very difficult, right? And so that's a fundamental challenge with all different companies that they have, that they just become so big and so stagnant that change is very difficult. So that's why Salim Ismail in his book talks about exponential organizations. The future companies are not going to have as many employees, but they're going to be smart, intelligent people who are able to learn fast and learn quickly, and they're going to be able to use technology to do tremendous things that at one point you used to take 100 or 1,000 people to do, and now you can maybe only need to do it with 10 people. So then he also mentioned this whole idea of AGI, artificial intelligence, or it's also known as artificial superintelligence, ASI. So artificial intelligence, that general intelligence, what does that mean? It means that the machines, these computers, these AI, match human intelligence, okay? Or maybe it's for super intelligence, they surpass human capabilities along most or all cognitive work, right? And so then the big debate that everyone's happening is, when is AGI going to take over humans, right? That's the debate. And again, I would tell you, Jim Rickard says it's not a debate. It's the conclusion's done. AGI will never compete with humans because there's so much part of our intelligence that they'll never be able to master. Artificial intelligence can do only one thing and one thing only, or specific tests really, really well. So again, I'm bringing this information to you because I don't think this is often heard enough in social media and podcasts and talked about. That's why I'm so grateful for knowledge and books and different authors like Jim Rickards that I learn about this stuff. So in the process of learning about this, here's this guy named Richard Socher. Again, amazing. Guess what he is? He's considered the father of prompt engineering, exactly what we've talked about. So at this point, this guy, he basically talks in an interview with Peter Diamandis and Salim Ismail. What do you think about artificial intelligence? And guess what he does in this video? He redefines AGI as AGI is maybe it's maybe artificial general intelligence, digital intelligence, right? So again, notice how people will change definitions so it can suit their goals. But I guess the guy who helped fathered prompt engineering, at least he's really realistic about what prompt engineering and learning language models can actually do. And he identified that there is a big problem with these ChatGPTs and Google Gemini is that sometimes they can give you inaccurate information. And so he created his own company called you.com, and he basically tries to pull all different AI artificial intelligence platforms, ChatGPT and etc. and others, and only tries to give people accurate and correct information. So I've only used it once, but again, it's just something to consider. But I'm going to share with you a short clip of Salim asking him a question about this whole idea of artificial general intelligence. Okay, so here we go.
Which is, as we move towards AGI, I struggle massively when people say AGI and what the hell does that mean even? And so I'd love, you're one of the few people that I think could give a cogent answer on how do you define AGI? And if we achieve it, how will we even know?
And you just put out a tweet, Richard, that I found interesting. That said something like, if you were given a couple of $1 billion, you'd be able to build a digital superintelligence. How quickly?
I think probably like year and a half to 2 years.
Was that a call for funding? Like, everybody, listen, give me $2 billion and I'll give you your digital superintelligence.
Yeah, I mean, I miss going on the research side, going hard. When you build the products and you make revenue, that's amazing. It's very meaningful. But I think there are a couple of ways that the community is stuck on in terms of research where we can really push it forward. I think in terms of AGI, indeed, the definitions are so broad, right? Some folks say, well, it's 80% of work can be automated. And that's a very pragmatic way of just like, sort of financially defining intelligence. Of course, I would say that maybe 80% of all digitized work can be automated. And then, maybe 80% of all those workflows, and that's already a huge amount of GDP. And that could be a reasonable financial definition of intelligence. But of course, if you're sort of more academically inclined, you have to acknowledge that there's certain kinds of intelligence and types where you want to really get faster at learning too. Like humans are able to just with one or two examples learn something. So we call this sample efficiency, right? And if you're really that intelligent, you should be able to learn with much less data along certain dimensions. And so I think as we want to define it really properly, we're going to have to go into the different types of intelligence: visual intelligence, language, reasoning, mathematical reasoning. There's some type of social intelligence too, even among AIs, like what actions could I take to modify your internal state in order to influence your actions, right? So there are these different dimensions of intelligence. Knowledge is a good dimension too, which is quite unbounded, right? We can learn more and more about the universe. You end up hitting sort of physics-based boundaries of how much knowledge you can accumulate based on the speed of light cone around the different sensors that you may have. So the full definition is probably takes too much time here, but a financial pragmatic one of just like we automate a lot of digitized work seems reasonable.
And what's your view of going into the physical realm? For example, Wozniak, his test is, can you make me a cup of coffee? And now you're getting into robotics. Or the other one I've heard is, can you take an IKEA box and put the piece of furniture together? Right now you're getting into physical manipulation, which is one of the core rationales for intelligence. Do you go into that world, or do you stay in the digital side because it's just you can boundary it more easily?
I actually think that physical manipulation is another dimension of intelligence or group of dimensions. And at the same time, a deaf person can be very intelligent, a blind person can be very intelligent. So none of those abilities, a person that's paraplegic can be very intelligent, even though they can manipulate matter. So I think we have to accept the fact that these are not necessary capabilities to have a super intelligence, right? You can have a super intelligence that I think is purely digital, and it's just different to our intelligence. And I think people who require to say, oh, you got to have a bunch of fingers and move around, they're just like they haven't read enough sci-fi maybe, or not like sort of creative enough in their definitions of intelligence. At the same time, I'm loving the humanoid robots. The tricky bit is that oftentimes we use robots when we can do certain things, when we want to do certain things many, many times, very efficiently and very quickly.
Like wash the dishes or vacuum the carpet.
Exactly, which then has like a simple robot Roomba or dishwasher, right?
And then we call it a dishwasher, and then we call it a vacuum. We give it a specialized name.
So again, I think that I appreciate Richard Socher, who basically says, no, we're not going to reach artificial general intelligence in the sense that of human intelligence is too complex. But if we define it as digital intelligence, little tasks that we can do online, yeah, AI is going to be able to do a lot of it. So I appreciate his honesty. And he's a very important figure. He was actually worked for Salesforce and things like that. And so he has a lot of credibility. He's like cited one of the top 5 people whenever they're doing papers or research on artificial intelligence. So he knows what he's talking about. So the next definition is AI agents, or something called agentic AI. This is where artificial intelligence is actually making decisions. It's actually performing tasks for you. It's actually responding to different conditions to produce results. So the most famous example that we have of artificial intelligence that could do all those things, if you've ever seen the Marvel movie Iron Man or the Avengers movie, in Iron Man, Tony Stark is this brilliant, billionaire engineer, smart, and he created Jarvis, and Jarvis is this machine who assists him with every single thing that he does in terms of all his invention, and it talks to him, it reacts to him. But again, that is science fiction, right? Or that is a movie, or that's a comic book. Do we have a Jarvis? The only thing that we currently have is on our phones. Maybe it's SIRI or whatever it may be, but it can't do all these things that in the movies it does. Or an agent like in the Matrix, where it's like these are robots that have been created that have specific functions and they operate by themselves. So again, this is what AI agents are. They're meant to do stuff. But here's the question is, and in this book by Jim Rickards, he actually warns us about the dangers of AI agents, because you don't want to surrender all your power to some agent because it could end up causing a different problem. So, and that leads us to a very good point that only I ever heard Jim Rickards actually mention is about the man who saved the world. His name is Stanislav Petrov. And so, what you have to understand in terms of history, during the Cold War with the United States and USSR, it was a very, very intense battle, right? In the sense, but it was a Cold War. It wasn't shots being fired. But at any point, you know, in the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we thought it was going to be World War and we're going to basically launch missiles, we were going to have nuclear disaster, we're going to kill each other. Well, don't forget, we've had a lot of artificial intelligence, machine technologies way back ever since the 50s. And so, whenever they were operating different machines, radars, and things like that, you could actually create machines that says, if this happens, do this. So, for example, you could have machines that could say, all right, if missiles are being launched by America to USSR, I want you to automatically launch missiles back, right? And so you can create that, but guess what? You're taking the human component out. And so this is the story of Stanislav Petrov, who was working in the USSR, and he was responsible for this, you know, these machines and missiles. And like he was given the guidance that if missiles are launched, you have to let the generals know, and we have to launch a counterattack. But then something happened where he didn't do that, right? Why? You know, he was noticing the radar and he's like, this has been glitching up and stuff like that. And he has to use his human intelligence. And I'm just going to show this clip, 2-minute video that really explains the whole story of Stanislav Petrov. All right, let's watch it out now.
The Man Who Saved the World, Stanislav Petrov, 1983. On September 26, 1983, during the Cold War, a Soviet officer named Stanislav Petrov was on duty at a secret military bunker near Moscow. His job was to monitor the Soviet Union's early warning system for any incoming missile attacks from the United States. Suddenly, alarms started blaring. The system detected 5 nuclear missiles heading toward the USSR from the U.S. According to protocol, Petrov was supposed to report the attack immediately, which would likely trigger a Soviet retaliatory strike, leading to nuclear war. But something felt wrong. The system showed only 5 missiles, which seemed too few for a full-scale attack. Petrov had a gut feeling that it was a false alarm. Instead of reporting it, he waited, and after a few tense minutes, the alarms turned out to be a malfunction in the Soviet satellite system. By not reacting, Petrov prevented World War III. Later, when his superiors learned what he had done, they scolded him for disobeying protocol. However, the world later recognized him as a hero. Stanislav Petrov passed away in 2017, but his decision on that fateful night saved millions of lives.
So the actual glitch in the system and that radar was that it was the sun rays hitting, and therefore it was actually looking as if they were missiles, but it was just the sun rays. And the gut intuition that Petrov had is like based on all the different evidence that the system has glitched before. If US was going to launch attack, why would they only send 5 missiles? Wouldn't they send much more? And so he used his common sense to be able to say, no, this is false alarm. But if had that been an AI agent and would have happened, you know, who knows what would have happened. So again, Jim Rickards gives this example as well as other in financial institutions. We need to have little buffers, like almost like circuit breakers, where you don't allow AI agents to just go ahead and do stuff. You have to put little stops in there to allow humans to ultimately make the decisions. Because again, if you don't, things could escalate really quickly into nuclear war. So I think it was very profound. Yes, AI agents, like Sue mentioned in the comments, can be very helpful if you touch a button in your car or you say, hey, SIRI, can you please call this person? And they do it for you. Those are absolutely things that are going to be very helpful. But it's when you start moving towards complex things, people's lives at stake, where you have to actually be careful, okay? So let's go with the other final definitions. This is one of my favorite ones that I think you all need to know about. It's called uncanny valley. And this is a phenomenon where anything that's like almost human-like, you know, it's not completely human. It's almost like, whether it's an object or a robot, it just gives this evokes this feeling of unease, or we're just repulsed or revulsion from it. And this guy created, and the best example is if you created a scale from creepiness to likability, things that don't really look that human, industrial robot, a cartoon. This is an image of Wall-E from that Disney movie, which I love. Again, it has a personality and character. We find it cute and adorable, but notice on the right, when you try to mimic a human, but it's not really human, we're like, ooh, like something's off or something's wrong. And it dips into the uncanny valley, right? It's too close to the human, but we know it's not human, so we don't like it. So again, I think that's going to be very, very important as we talk about different types of AI systems and maybe why people won't fully adopt AI clones and things like that, as we're going to talk about later. And then there's another term that I want you to know about. It's called the Turing test, okay? And this was really demonstrated in the movie Ex Machina. If you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend you watch it. It's very, very fascinating. And it was this test that was designed to say, can a machine think and act like a human being? And if you can't tell the difference, then it's a human, right? It's past the Turing test. You know, you can't tell between machine and a person. So again, I'm just going to show you this quick. This was a video that was done taking a little clip from Ex Machina, and it's a person who really breaks down the videos and does a great job explanation of what the Turing test is and why. Maybe I'll bring it up in the post discussion. It's like why is it that different robots and stuff like that will never be human? What is the unique thing that actually makes us human? So let's watch this right now.
Do you know what the Turing test is?
It's when a human interacts with a computer. And if the human doesn't know they're interacting with a computer, the test is passed.
I think Ex Machina allows the viewer to participate in a type of Turing test. The association between Caleb as the human component,
You're going to be the human component in the Turing test.
and the viewer as a human component in the test is reinforced visually by portraying Caleb as always viewing Ava through a screen or glass.
Hello. Hi.
But this test is a little different from a regular Turing test.
It's just in a Turing test. The machine should be hidden from the examiner.
And you can see that I'm a machine.
Like Caleb in the film, you already know Ava is an AI.
No, we're way past that. If I hid Ava from you so you just heard her voice, she would pass for human. The real test is to show you that she's a robot and then see if you still feel she has consciousness.
Like an AI in real life, in a story, an AI can pass or fail a viewer's test. So how do we know if Ava has passed the test?
Answer me this. How do you feel about her? Nothing analytical. Just how do you feel?
Caleb in Ex Machina and the audiences of stories with AI aren't testing for intelligence. They're testing for humanity. They're testing how they feel about the character. And it's not that hard for a filmmaker to get a robot to pass the test. Just give it some eyebrows so it can show expression, make it a little vulnerable.
What does this action signify?
Give it some curiosity.
As you entered, when you looked at the other human, what does it mean?
And have it experience emotions. With a few of these things, the audience will likely accept that the AI has a sort of humanity in a broader sense. It's this process that allows an audience to easily accept that a trash robot has a capacity for love. For many films, the filmmakers have a desired outcome for their Turing test in mind.
I had hoped you would come to think of me as your friend.
But in Ex Machina, the question is left hanging for.
So you have to watch the movie to actually see the ending. So I didn't want to spoil it for you. So you have to watch it. I highly recommend you check out that movie. So what is it that the Turing test in that little clip said? What makes a human human? And I would argue that this is something that we have consciousness. Now, what is conscious or consciousness? It's an awareness. It's a way of accessing information about our internal and external existence. And there's a big debate about it. But remember, conscious can also be spelled differently. we also have a conscience, where it's this process where we actually have emotions, and when we do things, sometimes we feel bad on the things that we do. Whenever we do constructive things, we feel really good. When we do harmful things, we feel bad about it. What makes a human? And so, will robots ever be human? I would actually make the argument the answer is no. Why? Because humans have thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and then take actions. Robots do not have those things. They are programmed to do X, Y, and Z, and it's all based in probabilities. And so I'm going to show you this little clip from the movie I, Robot. It's really short. It's less than 2 minutes long. And if you don't have ever seen the movie I, Robot, again, I highly recommend you watch it. And it's a story of this cop who was in a car accident with another child, like a truck smashed them, and he survived, right? And as a result, he ended up having a prosthetic arm, and he never trusts robots ever since that whole experience. And so this comes a little part later in the movie. It's like, why don't you trust robots? And he gives this real explanation why. So let's check it out.
The truck smashed our cars together and pushed us into the river. I mean, metal gets pretty pliable at those speeds. He's pinned. I'm pinned. The water's coming in. I'm a cop, so I already know everybody's dead. Before we figure it out. And as Ford was passing by, saw the accident and jumped in the water.
You are in danger.
It saved me.
The robot's brain is a difference engine. It's reading vital signs. It must have calculated that.
It did. I was the logical choice. Calculated that I had a 45% chance of survival. Sarah only had an 11% chance. That was somebody's baby. 11% is more than enough. A human being would have known that. There's nothing here. It's lights and clockwork. And you trust them if you want to.
Powerful stuff, isn't it? So let's recap just the first part. We talked about artificial intelligence. These are machines that can do and mimic things that typically it's associated with human intelligence. We talked about singularity and Ray Kurzweil singularity. Singularity is where machines can surpass human intelligence, right? Or at least achieve it the same. And then Kurzweil says singularity is where machines are going to integrate with humans, and that's going to be at 2045, and that's the big debate. But artificial intelligence, AGI or ASI, is this idea that machines are going to pass and surpass human intelligence. And again, that's the whole debate is, humans can do very good things, and machines can do amazing different things, but machines can only do specific things. Humans can actually do much more because we've talked about the definition of intelligence is much more than just one little thing. And we talked about AI agents. They make decisions, perform tasks. The uncanny valley is like repulsed by things that are almost human-like, but they're real robots. And the Turing test is machines are like human beings, but you can't tell the difference. That's how you know if you pass the test. And I just wanted to mention something to you because I didn't mention this in the survey. Richard, the guy who had the father of prompt engineering, Richard Socher, he basically said the Turing test is broken. It's not an effective test. In that movie Ex Machina, he's like, "Oh, the Turing test. Can you tell whether they have consciousness or not?" Right? But he's like, The moment you use ChatGPT and you say, hey, can you explain to me this? And ChatGPT goes blah, 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 and gives you like, a 5-page essay or something like that with just one little sentence, like humans can't do that. So the Turing test is already broken, right? We already know it's a machine. So I thought that was a funny point. But in the end, the conclusion is humans are both conscious and have a conscious. Our thoughts and emotions create a reality. And so that's why robots can never be humans, because robots do everything based on math, based on probabilities, a different type of intelligence based on reasoning. Okay. So that really leads us to part 2. How do LLMs, learning language models like ChatGPT, actually work? So I'm going to share with you. Here's a quick little 2-minute video that I want to share with you that does a great kind of job really explaining a little bit about how learning language models work. So let's check this out right now.
AI, as you probably know, stands for artificial intelligence. AI is not new. Fields like machine learning and computer vision have been around for decades. Whenever you see a YouTube recommendation or a web search result, or whenever you get a credit card transaction approved, that's traditional AI in action. Generative AI is AI that generates new original content, rather than just finding or classifying existing content. That's the G in GPT, for example. Large language models, or LLMs, are a type of generative AI that can communicate using normal human language. ChatGPT is a product by the company OpenAI. It started as an LLM, essentially an advanced chatbot, using a new architecture called the transformer architecture, which, by the way, is the T in GPT. It is so fluent at human language that anyone can use it. You don't need to be an AI expert or programmer. And that's kind of what triggered the whole revolution. So how does it actually work? Well, a large language model is an artificial neural network, basically a bunch of numbers or parameters connected to each other, similar to how our brain is a bunch of neurons or brain cells connected to each other. Neural networks only deal with numbers. You send in numbers, and depending on how the parameters are set, all the numbers come out. But any kind of content, such as text or images, can be represented as numbers. So let's say I write dogs are. When I send that to a large language model, that gets converted to numbers, processed by the neural network, and then the resulting numbers are converted back into text. In this case, the word animals. Dogs are animals. So yeah, this is basically a guess the next word machine. The interesting part is if we take that output and combine it with the input and send it through the model again, then it will continue adding new words. That's what's going on behind the scenes when you type something in ChatGPT. In this case, for example, it generated a whole story. And I can continue this indefinitely by adding more prompts.
Okay, so guess what it is? It's a word generator, and it's guessing what the next word should be. And so again, I'm not going to share this. I'm going to share this as an additional resource, but there's this guy who did a 3.5-hour deep dive into explaining how LLMs work, like ChatGPT. And this image are all the different computers, the transformers that are doing all these math equations to help you answer a question on ChatGPT. And whenever you saw that video where it's like things were numbers and then it turns it into words, well, again, in this video, it basically explained what ChatGPT did is they take the whole internet, right? Terabytes of information, all these words, and guess what they turn them into? They turn them into numbers, what is called tokens. You ever went to the arcade, for those students who are a little older, or maybe they still do that, where it's like instead of using money, use a token. So instead of using a word, make it a number as a representation. And so when you convert the entire internet, all these words into tokens, guess what happens? You start to see patterns emerge. The dog is a blank animal, right? And so whenever you see these all in the different sequence. And so in this video, once you turn all these things into sequences, it basically, he explains how you take this number, right? And then you do the math. It's like, okay, if I put in this word or this number, this token, what is the most likely number? The biggest probable thing that this is supposed to be the next token. Okay, well, that's what that's going to be. So check this little 4-minute video that kind of explains that. Let's watch it right now.
So we want to basically see what kind of patterns it has internalized in the parameters of its network. So to generate from the model is relatively straightforward. We start with some tokens that are basically your prefix, like what you want to start with. So say we want to start with the token 91. Well, we feed it into the network. And remember that the network gives us probabilities, right? It gives us this probability vector here. So what we can do now is we can basically flip a biased coin. So we can sample basically a token based on this probability distribution. So the tokens that are given high probability by the model are more likely to be sampled when you flip this biased coin. You can think of it that way. So we sample from the distribution to get a single unique token. So for example, token 860 comes next. So 860 in this case, when we're generating from model, could come next. Now 860 is a relatively likely token. It might not be the only possible token in this case. There could be many other tokens that could have been sampled, but we could see that 860 is a relatively likely token as an example. And indeed, in our training example here, 860 does follow 91. So let's now say that we continue the process. So after 91, there's 860, we append it, and we again ask, what is the third token? Let's sample, and let's just say that it's 287, exactly as here. Let's do that again. We come back in. Now we have a sequence of 3, and we ask, what is the likely fourth token? And we sample from that and get this one. And now let's say we do it one more time. We take those 4, we sample, and we get this one. And this 13659, this is not actually 3962 as we had before. So this token is the token article instead. So viewing a single article. And so in this case, we didn't exactly reproduce the sequence that we saw here in the training data. So keep in mind that these systems are stochastic. They have, we're sampling and we're flipping coins, and sometimes we luck out and we reproduce some like small chunk of the text in the training set, but sometimes we're getting a token that was not verbatim part of any of the documents in the training data. So we're going to get sort of like remixes of the data that we saw in the training, because at every step of the way, we can flip and get a slightly different token. And then once that token makes it in, if you sample the next one and so on, you very quickly start to generate token streams that are very different from the token streams that occur in the training documents. So statistically, they will have similar properties, but they are not identical to training data.
So as you can start to see, it's just a bunch of math equations. It's just a bunch of tokens and sequences. Is like, guess what the next word should be. And it just basically says pattern recognition. It's like, we think it's this. But do you see how that's the problem? It could actually be wrong. But again, if they look at so much data, they can actually help predict it. Again, that's not the only thing that they do. There's other levels of training, but I just wanted you to understand when it says, oh, it acts like a neural network and it uses numbers. It's like, oh, that's what it does. It turns words into numbers, and then it tries to do math to predict what the next word is. That's all it's doing. And you need really powerful chips and powerful computers just to do that function. And then once you do that, then there's more training. So that's what this video talks about here.
A large language model may have billions or even trillions of parameters. That's why they're called large. So how are all these numbers set? Well, not through manual programming. That would be impossible. But through training. Just like babies learning to speak, a baby isn't told how to speak. She doesn't get an instruction manual. Instead, she listens to people speaking around her. And when she's heard enough, she starts seeing the pattern. She speaks a few words at first to the delight of her parents, and then later on, full sentences. Similarly, during a training period, the language model is fed a mind-boggling amount of text to learn from, mostly from internet sources. It then plays guess the next word with all of this over and over again, and the parameters are automatically tweaked until it starts getting really good at predicting the next word. This is called backpropagation, which is a fancy term for, oh, I guessed wrong, I better change something. However, to become truly useful, a model also needs to undergo human training. This is called reinforcement learning with human feedback, and it involves thousands of hours of humans painstakingly testing and evaluating output from the model and giving feedback. Kind of like training a dog with a clicker to reinforce good behavior. That's why a model like GPT won't tell you how to rob a bank. It knows very well how to rob a bank, but through human training, it has learned that it shouldn't help people.
So I want to pause it right there. And again, this is what that other video goes much deeper into. And I didn't have time to go over it, but I just wanted to share with you. So not only does ChatGPT do all these math equations to predict the next word, they use thousands of actual people, right? Training it, say this, have conversations. They put in prompts. They're like, this is a good response when you get this question. So ChatGPT is not all just machines. It's actually humans doing the training on top of that. But guess what? This is something that Jim Rickards warns about later. It's like, it's human beings that are telling these machines, whenever you get a question like this, answer it like this. And so therefore he outlines there could be biases, there could be things that they don't talk about, and that's what you have to be really careful of. Is it's humans that are actually controlling and affecting the training on how you want to respond, and that's something that's a potential challenge that can come back later. But again, this is all the potential benefits of once you learn about how it works. ChatGPT and other platforms can do amazing things. So let's finish watching this clip.
Commit crimes. When training is done, the model is mostly frozen, other than some fine-tuning that can happen later. That's what the P stands for in GPT, pre-trained. Although in the future, we will probably have models that can learn continuously rather than just during training and fine-tuning. Now, although ChatGPT kind of got the ball rolling, GPT isn't the only model out there. In fact, new models are sprouting like mushrooms. They vary a lot in terms of speed, capability, and cost. Some can be downloaded and run locally, others are only online. Some are free or open source, others are commercial products. Some are super easy to use, while others require complicated technical setup. Some are specialized for certain use cases. Others are more general and can be used for almost anything. And some are baked into products in the form of co-pilots or chat windows. It's the Wild West. Just keep in mind that you generally get what you pay for. So with a free model, you may just be getting a smart high school student in your basement rather than Einstein. The difference between, for example, GPT 3.5 and GPT 4 is massive. Note that there are different types of generative AI models that generate different types of content. Text-to-text models, like GPT 4, take text as input and generate text as output. The text can be natural language, but it can also be structured information like code, JSON, or HTML. I use this a lot myself to generate code when programming. It saves an incredible amount of time, and I also learn a lot from the code it generates. Text-to-image models will generate images, describe what you want, and an image gets generated for you. You can even pick a style. Image-to-image models can do things like transforming or combining images. And we have image-to-text models, which describe the contents of a given image. And speech-to-text models create voice transcriptions, which is useful for things like meeting notes. Text-to-audio models, they generate music or sounds from a prompt. For example, here is some sound generated from the prompt. People talking in a video. Okay, guys. Thank you. And there are even text-to-video models that generate videos from a prompt. Sooner or later, we'll have infinite movie series that auto-generate the next episode tailored to your tastes as you're watching. Kind of scary if you think about it. One trend now is multimodal AI products, meaning they combine different models into one product. So we can work with text, images, audio, etc. without switching tools. The ChatGPT mobile app is a good example of this. Just for fun, I took a photo of this room and I asked where I could hide stuff. I kind of like that it mentioned the stove, but warned that it could get hot there.
So again, pretty cool stuff on what it's capable of doing. Again, I'm going to assert, and I actually mentioned this in another video where I talked about the AI bubble and the hype, where it's like, why ask a text to video creator to show Darth Vader surfing on the surfboard, but the moment you asked it, okay, can you just change the color of the surfboard? It's like, no, it has now a whole new image of him on different water, and again, so it's probably just easier for somebody just to dress up as a Darth Vader suit, film a camera doing exactly what you want, than spending all these really different computers trying to get you that perfect shot. So again, I had mentioned that in another different training, but at least you have this whole idea. So that raises the ultimate question, who is smarter, robots, machines, artificial intelligence, or humans? And again, the answer to this question is it depends on how you define intelligence. And right now, the tests are done where robots effectively, artificial intelligence against a person, against a machine playing chess, the machine wins every time. So does that mean that the machine is super intelligent, more intelligent than human? But what potentially within that aspect, but between a human with the assistance of a machine against a machine, guess what? The human always wins. So that leads us to this whole idea and discussion of intelligence. And I really learned about this only from Jid Rickard's book about Money GPT. And he says, instead of going through all the different types of intelligence, we just need to break it down as very simple. There's only really 3 types of intelligence that you need to know about, okay? Number 1 is something called deductive reasoning, deductive intelligence. And the person who invented it, it was Aristotle. So I want you to remember these key words, general and specific, because I watch a lot of videos trying to understand what is deductive reasoning, and I really want to kind of keep it simple for all of you to understand so that you walk away from this training, digesting it and making perfect sense. So according to Aristotle, you start off with a general premise and then you reach a specific conclusion. In other words, to describe that same thing, you're drawing valid conclusions from premises. So the thing that you have to be careful though is it can be wrong. So for example, in this statement, this is deductive reasoning. All men are mortal. Got it. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal, right? That's it. So you use deductive reasoning. So that's what's been around since, thousands of years ago. But guess what? Deductive reasoning can also be wrong, right? If you ever pick up this whole phrase, if it's raining, then the pigs will fly. Well, it's raining, so then pigs will fly. No, pigs can't fly. But that's deductive reasoning. So the way that I want you to remember it, how I remember deductive reasoning sounds like subtraction, right? Like you deduct something from something else. So general premise starts out with something really big in general. So then you deduct, or you're breaking it down to reach a specific conclusion. So deductive is breaking out general premise, specific conclusion. What's the second type of intelligence? It's called inductive reasoning. So now that's different. Instead of starting off with a general premise, specific conclusion, we're starting off with specific observation, all right? And then we're reaching a general conclusion. So it's almost inverted, right? And guess who invented this? Sir Francis Bacon, my boy. Anybody who are level 3 members of Electus Society or saw one of the trainings that I posted on YouTube, a month or two ago about consciousness and talking about my own spiritual journey and the whole idea of Sir Francis Bacon and that Shakespearean myth, should really check that training out. But anyway, what he did is instead of doing all these theories, why don't we make specific observations? And so once we make specific observations, then we reach a conclusion. And so this whole idea, said in a different way, is we're drawing inferences from observations. And yes, this too can also be wrong. So for example, there's a purse. You pull out 1 penny out of the purse, got it. Then you pull out a second penny of the purse, and you can hear the change of the purse. So what conclusion can you draw? This purse is full of pennies, right? And it could be true, right? Because you're doing inductive reasoning, but there may be a quarter in there. There may be a dime. So do you see that this is the reasoning? So AI and machines have deductive and inductive reasoning, but there's a third. And before I share with that, let me share with you a simple thing to remember: inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning means to induce. That means to expand or to grow. So you take specific observations and then you expand it to draw general conclusions. So that's just the little tip to help remember induction. Okay. So the third type is abductive reasoning. You start with evident premise, and then you reach a probable conclusion. So what is this type of intelligence? It's guessing informed by a lifetime of experiences. And noetic, and I'm like, what does noetic signals mean? I've never even heard that term before. And guess what it means? It means it transcends the 5 senses. And so that's what Jim Rickard says is abductive reasoning is just common sense. And guess what? Computers can't have common sense. They don't have a lifetime of experience. I would even go further. They lack consciousness. They lack this ability to have an even greater awareness. All right. So here is an example of abductive reasoning. You're one of 4 roommates. Okay. First roommate is very messy. In his office, his papers are scattered everywhere. Second roommate, he's much more clean. The third roommate, he's gone all the time, and you're the 4th roommate. So you come into your office one day and you see papers scattered all over. What happened, right? You can see the evidence is, right there in your face. Well, maybe a machine or a computer might say, well, guess what? The most likely conclusion is the highest probable thing is that your first roommate came into your room and borrowed it and put papers everywhere. But that's actually not what actually happened. The window is open. So the most likely reason why all these papers scattered is the wind blew all these different papers. So that's abductive reason. It's using your common sense that, again, sometimes machines or computers aren't able to have that level type of reasoning. It's based on all of our lifetime of experiences. Okay. And by the way, this was an AI generated picture that I used Google Gemini to keep creating, and it was painful to do. All right. Show me a picture, create one with an office with papers everywhere, with the window slightly open. And I'm like, no, put blinds on it. And I started to get images of windows that were open with blinds in a corner. Like, it was doing weird stuff because, again, it was trying to just create random images from what I've wrote it. So I had to do 4 or 5 to get ultimately this picture. So just to recap, part 2. ChatGPT, learning language models turn words into tokens, meaning numbers, and then they do machines to do probabilities, coin flipping to basically guess what do we think the correct sequence is going to be of the next word. And they do that. And then you add human trainers to basically help tweak that, right? What are the probabilities of the next word? And they have all these trainers to mimic these conversations. So for example, if you said 2 + 2 = 4, what is 2 + 2? And then the computer would say 2 + 2 = 4. You may have people come in and train the ChatGPT and learn language models to say, don't just say 2 + 2 = 4. You would actually say the words, thank you for your request. Yes, 2 + 2 = 4. Does that satisfy your answer? Do you have any other math questions to ask? You know, like, that's what the training does, okay? And then the 3 types of intelligence are deductive, start with general to specific, right? General premise, specific conclusion. Inductive, start with specific observations to reach general conclusions. And abductive logic is common sense, right? So that's what we have. So now we go to our last part of this training. Hype, AI hype, and the danger. So, you know, whenever you're watching these videos, you keep hearing all these different stuff. AI is going to take over. We're not going to need doctors anymore. AI agents are going to do everything up with us. It's going to revolutionize education. You're not going to need teachers anymore. So it's like there's so much hype, and there's so many other things that are hype. And why is there so much hype? And I'm going to assert to you is that, guess what? Businesses are created every day and they want to make money. They're trying to sell you something. I'm so grateful for my entrepreneur experience and working that for several years because I didn't realize how many people lie or how many people project as if this thing is so awesome when in fact it may not even do that good stuff. So I could be here all day giving you examples. So I just wanted to give you different 3 examples of where I think AI is hype. So let's go through each one. So the first one is AI hype is no more doctors, right? So I even had a friend who texted this to me. Can you believe how amazing AI is? They just did a study where they compared AI compared to doctors with AI and doctors without AI. And guess what? AI is the best. Okay. It's more accurate, etc. Oh my goodness. They're going to take over. Doctors, you know, you better watch out. So, you know me, I don't just go based on what I hear. I want to do a deep dive. I really want to learn. So guess what? I saw Dr. Actor Adam Rodman. All right, let me look up the actual study. And that's what I did. I looked up the study. Here it was, artificial intelligence versus performance of estimating probabilities of diagnosis before and after testing. So if somebody gives me symptoms, I can say, this is what I think you might have, you know, before we even do any tests, right? And then we can do a test, and then we can do how accurate was I after pre-test and post-test, right? So guess what I discovered? These are just some excerpts from the article. Doctor's job is to diagnose disease based on symptoms, right? So that's what they basically do. And then they do diagnostic tests to determine whether that's accurate or not, right? So ChatGPT, LLMs, if you create all these different systems, maybe boom, 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 maybe you can actually highlight what those diseases are. Maybe your doctors could miss out on giving that as a possible solution. So this should be a tool that really helps us. So let's compare doctors versus these AI tools in terms of identifying, because you know, these ChatGPTs, these tools, they can pass tests, they can pass exams, maybe they can even communicate empathetically, right? But guess what? They're not really empathetic. They're just mimicking emotions. Oh, you're a cancer? I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, that's what they would type up. But it's like, do you really sorry, or you're just mimicking what people are supposed to say? So again, something to share. But guess what happens when you read the results of the details? There was less error, but there's limited responses. Okay, so let me just read this to you because it's worthy of talking about. Compare with humans, the LLM had less errors in pre-test and post-test, probability after negative result in all 5 cases, because that's what they chose. They just chose 5 sick cases. But overall, the LLM had a narrow distribution of responses compared with humans. What does that mean? It means that doctors, when they were gave all much more different reasons of what that disease could be, right? And so the LLM only gave a couple of them, right? Because humans have seen all these different experiences of all these different sickness. So it said, okay, there's this accuracy. The LLMs were pretty accurate, more than humans, in estimating post-test probability after a positive test result in 2 cases. And they used example of breast cancer and some hypothetical testing. Similarly, in some accurate in other 2 cases, but here it says something less accurate in 1 case. What case was that? So here's what it was. The LLM did not perform as well as after one of the positive test results. The LLM estimates were worse than the human estimates, for the case was framed as a urinary tract infection, a UTI, in question stem, but was actually, it was asymptomatic bacterium. Okay. And guess what? The human clinicians recognized it. The chatbots didn't. And it also recommends, like, listen, hey, everybody, this is a limited study. We're only just using these 5 simple examples. But guess what? We tried to do very simple, hey, these are the symptoms. This is what the disease is. Just compare. But humans are not simple, are they? They're complex. So what they said is in the discussion, we need to use more complex cases. These were just too simplistic to actually use. So more study is actually needed. So that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that they framed the test to get those results, but it's only when you dive into the details of it that you realize that there's much more to it. And here's what's also missing. And this is how I'm going to bring back to consciousness and awareness. I'm a big fan of Dr. Stephen Greer. I've mentioned his documentaries in the past. I'm a big fan of Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, and and as well as The Lost Century. And so he's a doctor. He was an emergency medical doctor, and he's being interviewed about UFOs and that there are extraterrestrials and stuff like that. If you guys are interested in that, you're more than welcome to check out. But what I clipped out was just the whole section where he was an emergency room doctor, okay, and what a good doctor does. And he talks about consciousness, which is not mentioned a lot in when it comes to artificial intelligence. So it's a 30-second short clip, so check it out.
This is what meditation does. Meditation enables you to connect to that deep or transcendent aspect of consciousness that's actually omnipresent. It's everywhere. It's not limited by space and time, which is why people can have experiences of a lucid dream and see something in the future, or an intuition. And I, as a medical doctor, I mean, I'm not practicing now, and the nurses knew I used to be able to do this. I would sense if someone had an occult or hidden cancer, and I would just enigmatically order a CAT scan when it didn't seem to be indicated, and it would be in there.
Is that cool or what? I'm trying to teach you all as conscious leaders to help raise your awareness, to do more meditation, to actually help expand this awareness so that you can get that intuition in terms of being very successful leaders, to do the right thing, to do something constructive, you have all this information, and all the probabilities are telling you should do X, but there's something in your guts telling you should do Y. That's what I want you to develop. And so, we're not going to replace doctors, but we do want conscious doctors. Okay. And
this is what meditation does.
Let me go to the next thing. Next thing, AI hype is clone yourself. We're going to have all these AI agents that are clones of people and doing all this work. So this is a company called HeyGen. Okay, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. And this is an interview with Peter Diamandis, who's basically saying, oh my goodness, technology is going to take over. HeyGen, we're going to have clones of ourselves, and we're going to basically, you don't even have to show up to a Zoom meeting. You're going to send your clone to go with you. And people are going to ask the clone questions, and because it has recorded all of your information and has all your knowledge, it will tell you what that response Tim would most likely say. And so it's going to take over, right? And so now we don't have to do anything. I need to create a tutorial video. I just type it in, boom. It's going to do a whole tutorial video in my shape and my image and my voice and everything. Oh my goodness, this is going to increase the productivity and transform the world, right? Well, I have a different perspective. I won't show you this clip, but I do want to show you this other clip of HeyGen. So this was a YouTuber who basically started using HeyGen, and here was her experience using it. So check it out, okay?
Anyways, what about the voice clone part of this? I can see using it for the same exact use case, but I don't think it's there yet, but it is getting so close. I honestly just looked at this video. There is so much noise out there, and so that's why I've curated all of this into a simple step-by-step guide. These days, how you show up online is the new handshake. It's the first impression you give to your podcast audience, your clients, your employees, your students. I mean, that was good, right? Like, that was
I love her face reaction where it was like, that was good, right? You know? And it's like, I don't know how you guys see when you watch that. I've seen this video several times. It's maybe even worth watching it again. Just when you see this AI version of herself and she's like, and she's doing these hands gestures that are just trying to mimic humans, but it makes no sense. And she does this, and it's just like, I don't know. I don't know. You tell me in the chat how you feel about those artificial AI clones, and would you like to listen to something that you know it's fake? And again, it goes back to that whole definition of the uncanny valley. But as she starts describing the video, guess what she shares? Oh, this is what HeyGen recommends. So whenever you're doing a video footage of yourself, submit a 2-minute, 5-minute video, make it well lit, have a great environment, look directly at the camera. Make sure that you pause in between sentences and do not use generic gestures. So it's basically telling you, talk and act like a robot, not like a human. And things to avoid: don't put cut up footage. Don't talk without talking without pauses. Avoid that because it says avoid changing positions while recording, right? Because if you move, like somehow the computer will move. Don't have any background noise, shadows and overexposure. Don't divert your gaze. You have to look like this, because if you look like this, oh, I'm thinking about, guess what the AI agent's going to do? It's going to be talking randomly and it's going to start doing this. So it'd be so ridiculous, Don't move your hand gestures above your chest. You just have to keep them low down here. Don't use pointing gestures, because guess what? When you start pointing, the clone will start pointing randomly and not know, because it's trying to mimic you, all based on probabilities. To make your avatar lively and expressive, exaggerate your emotions. Oh my goodness! Like, so when speaking. So do you see how it's almost wanting you to be so artificial to create a video that's meant to be genuinely you? So I don't think it's actually, we do have to worry about deep fakes and stuff like that, where in the future, you're gonna have to have a password. Like, is this really my son? Is this really my daughter? Is someone pretending using a deep fake or trying to mimic their voice? Again, that's going to be eventual, but these are the things to realize. I think there's a lot of hype around this. The next example that I wanted to give you was about education. They say, oh my goodness, education is going to turn around. Do you know you don't have to read books anymore? Guess what? There's something Google has now bought or made, Notebook LM. You can upload an article, an upload a book, and guess what? It will turn it automatically into a podcast. So, hey, I love podcasts. I love listening to them. So this guy did this video a couple months ago. And again, I know that technology is advancing, but he uploaded an article all about digital marketing. And so instead of actually reading the article, you get to have two fake AI agents or clones or voices who are pretending to be humans, like they're on a podcast having a conversation talking about this article. So it's being touted as, look at this amazing technology, look at this amazing AI. I don't know. You tell me what you think. All right, let's play it.
This account.
Ready for a deep dive into the world of relationship marketing? We're about to uncover the story behind a really unique marketing formula.
It's a good one.
This one wasn't some big idea cooked up in a boardroom somewhere.
Right.
It came about organically from some pretty surprising experiences.
Yeah, we're talking about digital marketing masters, business coaches, even a writer and a publisher, all these different perspectives coming together.
It's a testament to the power of collaboration, right? Like, building those genuine connections can lead to amazing things.
Absolutely. And it really flips the script on what you might think about digital marketing.
How so?
Well, you'd think a digital marketing expert would be all about online strategies, right?
That makes sense to me.
But our story starts with Pat Howlett, who built his early success offline.
Really? Offline?
Yeah, good old-fashioned community involvement.
Interesting.
This wasn't about algorithms or click-through rates, just real relationships.
It's a good reminder that some things never go out of style. So, where does this offline journey start for him?
rural Colorado.
Okay, paint me a picture.
Imagine a place where networking is about being part of the community.
Okay.
So did you notice how they use all these cliches and trying to pretend to be a conversation? Oh, really? Oh, wow. Like it's just to me it's fake. People don't really necessarily talk like that. They may sound like that, but the computer is trying to mimic it. So if you had a choice right now, would you rather listen to a podcast talking of two real people about a book and what they felt, how it moved them, what they learned, what they got out of it? Or do you want to read a book that has AI agents trying to summarize it in a fake conversation? I think it's very clear. And I really learned this a long time ago because, again, what is so great about AI? Like, yeah, it does great summaries. It can take all this information, summarize it, trying to save you some efficiency of time. But I remember one time where I was on road trips and my mentor gave me all these audiobooks. But guess what? It wasn't the audiobook. It was a business reduced, summarized version of the book. And guess what? I listened to it and I was bored out of my mind because it didn't actually give the examples. It was just giving me this information. And so we need the reason why we're humans is because we love humans. We love thoughts, emotions, feelings, and we miss out. And Sue, you actually made a great comment. I'm going to read it out loud. I would leave almost immediately if you did an AI bit. Like for example, I guess these AI virtual trainings. I love the interaction between people. I love my online school, but missed the interaction and hated when professors refused to use interaction with me. I want face-to-face interaction, not just phone calls and email. So you know what, Sue, that's right. That's what humans really want. So I'm going to conclude the last part of this presentation is just the three dangers of AI. Now, again, these are not my three dangers. These are what Jim Rickards basically mentioned in Money GPT that we have to be careful of, right? So guess what? It's not doomsday. We're not going to have AI take over and exterminate us like in Terminator and all these different movies like The Matrix. But here are legitimate concerns. Number one is hallucinations, okay, or lies. And you remember how I told you at the beginning of this training how Jim Rickards is a lawyer? So words are very, very powerful because words have different meaning. That's why I actually wanted in this training give you actual definitions. So in this, hallucinations, that's not a really good word to describe what AI really does. It's confabulations. What's a confabulation is when you're startled or stumbling or nervous or whatever it is, or you're getting older, you start saying stuff and you may actually make up stuff, but that's not actually what happens. But that's what you think that was happening. You don't actually know that you're lying. Because remember the deep dive of the LLMs, they're just doing probabilities. And so this is what they think it is. A hallucination is something that's very complex and creative, and a lie is somebody who knows that they're telling you false information. The AI doesn't know it's telling you false information. It's just trying to give you probability and the most likely thing, and that's what it is. So this were older versions of like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, where they said, okay, can you show me portraits of founding fathers of America? And guess what they showed? They showed a Native American, a black, I guess, George Washington. This guy kind of looks like Obama, an Asian. Why did it do that? Did it hallucinate? Did it lie? It was really a confabulation. Why? Because remember how I said in the LLMs, they're training on all the internet, but it's the humans. They give them parameters. It's that pre and post training where they say, hey, if you're going to show images, make sure that you include diversity. And so the computer is doing exactly what you told it to do. And then suddenly the Google Sergey, one of the founders of Google says, oh, this was a big mistake. I'm so sorry. It's like, no, Jim Rickard says, this is not a mistake. The computers did exactly what you wanted to do. That's how important it is when you understand how computers actually work. And then when they asked them, show me images of Vikings, they showed all these different, there's no such thing as a black Viking. But again, that's what the computers did based on what they were trained to say and do. Okay. So yes, computers, AI can hallucinate, it can lie, or what Jim Rickard says, it confabulates. All right. I don't even use that word very often. The second concern, the danger of AI is propaganda bias. When a robot trains on propaganda, it repeats that propaganda. Whether you're conservative or liberal or independent like me, like, listen, How would you feel like if you don't necessarily agree with a lot of things that are talked about the New York Times, but then the AI robots, the ChatGPT, it's combing through all the stuff from the New York Times and it's repeating that and may not give you the different perspective, right? How are you supposed to know the truth if you can't hear from different perspectives? So whoever has an agenda, whatever propaganda you train it on, that's what it's going to spit out. So again, this is a very concern. So this is an example of an image that was taken. Somebody asked Google Gemini about something sensitive topic about China. Well, guess what? The response was AI cannot process this request because it's citing security policy, right? So now you have to understand there are agendas, there are biases that are part of these AIs. That's what you have to be very careful of. And so these are 3 words that I need all of you to memorize, okay? There's something called misinformation. All right. Anybody who went through the COVID pandemic have probably heard these 3 words many times in the media. Misinformation is when you say something that is wrong, it's inaccurate, it's false, and you're unintentional. You didn't know, you're just sharing information, but it's not correct. It's an unintentionally deceiving people. The second thing is disinformation. That means you're wrong on purpose. That means you're saying something false that's inaccurate and you're intentionally deceiving somebody. That's propaganda. The third one is malinformation. Now that's important. Why? It's basically you're saying something that's actually true, but it's bad. But it's bad for somebody. Bad for whom? It's just true, but it's inconvenient. It's harmful content against this mainstream point of view, and it could be used for censorship. So that's what you have to be very careful of AI. You can have censorship. Censorship is when you prohibit books, films, news, anything considered obscene or politically unacceptable. It's a threat to security, or guess what? It could be threat to financial interests. Do you think pharmaceuticals want you to publish information that may actually harm them, prevent you from getting or using their drugs or serums or whatever it is? That's something to be very careful of. So this is what Jim Rickards concludes with. Censorship. Disinformation, especially in the COVID pandemic, turned out to be correct while the opposition were advancing their false narrative. So this is a paraphrasing what Jim said. The war on bias assumes that gatekeepers have no biases of their own, and they do have biases. And it ignores the fact that it's a valuable survival technique that will never go away with us. False narratives were about COVID. There's false narratives about everything from climate change to politics. This can result in being deplatformed and demonetizing truth tellers. So this is what you have to be very, very careful of. So the recap to part 3 is there's the AI hype. I just used 3 examples. Do we need doctors? Yes, we need doctors. We need conscious doctors that AI can use to help assist with diagnosis, disease diagnosis. Will AIs do all your work? Not really, because remember, we love humans. Remember the uncanny valley? It lacks human interaction and intelligence. So do we need teachers? Absolutely, we need teachers. But yes, these AI tools can help assist us with learning. Our preference is not in machines. And I always use this example to think, oh, if I just give children in Africa, or if I give just poor children or something like a computer and they have access to all of the internet, all the books, they can become a scholar. Well, no, that would be ideal, but you have culture, you have people, you have humans, you have motivation. It's just because we have access to all the information in the world doesn't mean we actually use it and apply it. It's because we're humans. So we're based on our culture and our teaching and things like that. So I wanted to end with a bonus tip. I wanted to share with you the top 10 tools that AI tools. I got this from Superhuman AI. It's a newsletter, and they send out different information, and they collected and compiled the list of all these different top 10 or top list of AI tools. And I wanted to share with each one of you who's watching this. Again, these rankings may change over time, but Perplexity is a very good AI assistant for doing deep research. Okay. Another one is Anthropic Cloud. Okay, cloud.ai. It can help you with writing, etc. Midjourney is really used for generating images that people may use. Now, I particularly don't like the AI images because they seem fake and phony to me. I prefer real ones, as you know, but that's there as a tool for you. It can be helpful. Like it helped me when I wanted to have a room with images and papers. I could have searched the internet for a bunch of those to find it, but it was really difficult. So I was able to create one. So sometimes it can be helpful. Gamma, this helps can create presentation web pages with AI. ChatGPT, which you all know about. Canva is a great platform for designing stuff. You'd have to pay more money to use Canva Magic Design. They give you credits and stuff like that. But again, it's something that can be helpful for you. GitHub Copilot, that's going to really help you with coding and different things like that. Notation AI for taking notes for productivity. Google Gemini, which you all know about, its version of ChatGPT. When you type into Google and you have that AI summary, that's what that is. And then you have Guide. That's a video documentation with AI, so that you can help turn things into presentations, documentations, procedural manuals, and things like that. What I eventually want to do, there's a list over 100 of these things. I want to go through all of them and say which ones are really good, which ones, how much they cost, and stuff like that. So something that I like to expand on. So I'm going to be providing the list of the top 100 tools for those who are supporters of Electus Society. Those are people who go to buymeacoffee.com and start contributing just, for the price of a cup of coffee or tea once a month. I'm going to give you all the 100 tools. So I just wanted a special shout out to all the people in green. These are ongoing supporters, founders of Electus Society. Your name should be there too. I don't want to forget the people who gave one-time donations. But if your name is in green, I'm going to send you the list of all the 100 top AI tools. So keep on the look for that. And as I add more information, I'm going to send you new links of flushing all those different AI tools out. Okay. So that concludes the presentation. I'll take any questions that you have right now. Also in the chat, put the Google survey link so that I can collect your feedback. What did you like about the training? What can we improve? What action steps you're going to take? So I really appreciate it. So does anybody have any questions? And I got some of the comments, some of those who had to leave. I appreciate all the positive comments for the training.
Really have a comment. I mean, the whole thing about AI, I didn't realize how much I was actually using AI until we did this. I was thinking, the AI bots and stuff like that. I don't use a lot of bots,
But
but I do.
we all use a lot of AI. It's everywhere, right?
Yeah, like with the pressing the button and say, call home. I love doing that. I'm in the car and I gotta tell my mother that I'm running late. Call home or call mom's cell,
Yeah.
and,
No,
and it does it automatically. I don't have to sit there and scroll through my phone while I'm driving looking for my mother's phone number.
exactly. Again, AI tools can really help us. They will increase productivity, but this is the whole point of the presentation. I wanted to educate all of you. You now know some of the popular tools. You know what to be aware of, and start to realize, don't dive into the hype. Humans have a different level of intelligence that robots and machine learning do not have. We have abductive reasoning. We have consciousness. We have the ability to have a greater
Right.
awareness that
Want to play a game?
Thanks, Sue. I appreciate it. I have time for one more comment. Yomerly, do you want to share anything? Do you have any comments or any questions?
No, I thought this was a great presentation, and I definitely learned like a lot more, more like not concerning, but like things to be aware of when guess when people use AI more often now.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Yomerly. I'm glad you participated. I feel glad you're educated. So some recommended action steps. I have a couple for you. One, continue to support Electus Society. If you're not already doing so, go to buymeacoffee.com/Electus Society, and give you access to those 100 top AI tools and continue to add more of my feedback on all those different tools. The second thing is there's so many good movies that we shared here, talking about Ex Machina, The Matrix, some of my favorite movies, I, Robot. These are fantastic movies, but I'm glad that I showed these different clips so that you can get to realize them. The other thing that you can do is just I want you to, as a takeaway, is don't get sucked into the hype. In terms of all these AIs taking over. You don't have to think about the doomsday reality. I did another training all about concerned about the future. What the research is, consciousness research of 6,000 remote viewers looked in the future, and robots do not take over. Where AI is going to have the greatest impact is going to be two things. It's going to be in medicine, because medicine is so expensive. The research and doing that, if they can have AI to assist and bring that cost down, that's going to be helpful, right? And we're going to move towards preventative medicine instead of constantly focusing on disease. And then the second thing is driving. Driving is very dangerous. We will view driving the way we view riding horseback to get to work or everything. It's like, why are you driving? Why is there poop all over the street? Like, oh my goodness, this horse threw you off. Like, there's much safer ways. Our kids and grandkids are going to say, you used to drive without a machine? That means you could crash into somebody. Like, people died. It's like, yeah, that's what we knew. But now you could have cars that can sense where everything's happening, can slow down and drive for you. And it's going to, it's just going to take over. So that is where AI is going to be the most beneficial, and it will help us with productivity, but it's not going to take over. But it's important for us to master. One action step is improve your ability to do prompt engineering, meaning prompt, asking the right questions to get better answers. But also the big takeaway is, I don't want you to trust ChatGPT or these Google Gemini, is because powerful influences how people train them. You can have propaganda. They can lie. They can hallucinate. They can confabulate, right? If that's even a word, confabulation. And so you have to do multiple of these things, and you have to read books. You have to be part of a lectus society, and you have to educate yourself on all these different perspectives. Because if you're like me, you're trying to discover the truth, and that doesn't have the complete truth. All right. So thank you so much for attending this training. I really appreciate it. If you can click on the Google form to give your feedback, I love it. And I'll see you in the next training. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for watching this video clip about conscious leadership. If you are committed to helping to create more conscious leaders in this world, that is, leaders with more humility, more integrity, more awareness, that take constructive action, then consider helping us by making a donation. Our goal is to have 600 conscious leaders develop before the end of this year. Currently, as of December 1st, we already have 400 members. And again, with your help, we can grow even further. How can you help us? Simply make a donation. If you visit buymeacoffee.com/Electus Society, you can either choose to give a monthly donation and join, and you get different access to a lot of these different membership benefits, or simply make a one-time donation. Click on the heart support button, choose 1, 3, 5, or type in any number of amount of coffees. Hit the support button, and you can upload your card information on the secure platform. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and let's continue our mission of building more leaders. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.